great to be here, folks. My name is Pearl Haining. I am one of the co-founders of Branson U, and I am so excited to welcome you to the first annual Branson U Candidate Forum. Before we get, yes. As we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping things. First of all, I do want to let you know, most of you probably saw the signs as you came in, but I did want to mention, although Branson does have a mask ordinance, if you are seated with a family member, if you are hearing impaired, if you are with someone who is hearing impaired, or if you have a medical condition that prevents you from wearing a mask, you are absolutely exempt. We do value the health and safety of everyone here, but part of that means that we also want to respect your needs as an individual. And speaking of needs, there are restrooms located in the lobby should the need arise. Men's are on your right side, and ladies' restroom on the left side of the lobby. The morning session should run us about 2 hours. If you need to get up during that time, we understand. We do also have bottled water in the lobby as well, so want to keep everyone hydrated and happy. Branson U is a new organization, and we're excited to be helping to educate the community about the community. As you see on the screen there, our slogan is "Community Starts with You." And that means each one of you has an individual responsibility in contributing to this community, and we are so excited to see all of you here today taking that step of initiative. The pillars of our core principles are learn, lead, love, and you can put those in any order you want, but if you love the Branson community, you will learn how to get involved in the Branson community. You will lead by getting involved in the Branson community, and you can love the Branson community by helping to repeat that process for those around you. So, absolutely. Part of the process of starting Branson U meant that I ended up doing a lot of education for myself and learned a lot about the community. BransonU.org has some of that information to help make the basics of Branson and how the government works here more accessible for you guys, hopefully easier for you to understand, and I hope that you guys will check that out. And if there's something on there that you need to know and don't see, please send us a message and we'll work on getting that information available. One of the things that we did learn in the process of starting Branson U is that 85% of registered voters in Branson do not participate in local elections. I was shocked when I saw that number, and it's a pretty incredible number because it means that 85% of this town is not involved in this town, and we need to change that because Branson is an amazing community, and we've gotten so good at serving our visitors, but we can't forget our neighbors along the way. And so that's why our local elections matter, and that's why it matters that each one of us gets involved in that issue. Now, this is a candidate forum, and that means that we'll be learning a lot about these candidates that you see on the stage. This morning we'll be featuring the mayoral candidates, and this afternoon the alderman candidates. That is a crucial session. I urge you guys to stay for the afternoon session and even invite friends to come and join you, because while the mayoral candidates do have an important role in the community, it's the alderman candidates that do most of the voting. And so they're the ones that do the majority of the policy making, and it's really important that we don't overlook that in this process. Now, before we get to the candidate questions, I have a couple of questions for you all. So, first question is, how many of you are here because you are passionate about politics? actually a surprising number. How many of you are here today because you are passionate about Branson? Okay, all right. Now, the next time we have this forum, I want to hear that way louder. But that is a great place to start. That's why I'm here. That's why everyone on this stage is here. And I'm so glad that that's why you guys are here. Now, I want to open with a quote from a guy named Benjamin Franklin. He said, "The longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men, and if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid?" The answer that Benjamin Franklin found is an answer that I think is extremely relevant today, and that is no, we cannot rise without the aid of our God. Branson may be a small empire, but we need God's blessing. Today, throughout the election, throughout the future of our community, we need God's blessing if we are going to rise. And with that in mind, I'd like to call Pastor Jay Scribner up to open this morning in prayer.
Pearl, thank you very much, and I want to commend you and your partner who has had the vision to begin Branson U, and we encourage you in that. Thank you for taking that leadership, and we appreciate you having this type of forum. Let's join together in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for a beautiful day. Thank you for the privilege to live in the Ozarks. We are blessed, and we are grateful for that. And Father, we thank you for men and women such as are seated here on this platform who are willing to become public servants. We thank you for that type of spirit, that type of attitude, and we pray, Father, that you would bless them as they serve you and as they serve the people of this area. I pray that you would bless them in their goals. And I pray for the people of this community that we might have wisdom as we seek to know exactly who we should vote for and how we should follow their lead and their leadership. And we pray, Father, for not only these mayoral candidates, but for all who are running for office in this area and throughout our nation. I pray that they might be men and women of righteousness. Your word tells us that righteousness exalts or builds up a nation, but sin brings reproach to any people. And so I pray, Father, that beginning right here in our hometown, that we might place in office people of righteousness. Again, your word tells us that when righteous individuals rule, that the people rejoice. But when evil people rule, the people mourn. And so, Lord, I pray that the days ahead for us might be days of rejoicing. I pray, Father, that we might seek out the right candidates that would lead this community in the right way, in a way of righteousness, in a way that would not only bless our community and bless the visitors who come here, but would bless you. And consequently, Father, I pray for the candidates that they might draw among themselves, around themselves, people like the men of Issachar of old, people that understand the times. We are living in difficult times. And so consequently, Father, we place our hope in you. And I pray that we might have individuals serving in office that would likewise place their hope in you. Now bless this morning. and this afternoon. And I pray, Father, that we might gain insight today that would bring honor and glory to Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray, and for his sake, amen.
Next, I'd like to invite Mr. David Fontaine to the stage. He is no stranger to Branson. He's new to my life, someone that I've had the privilege to meet in the process of starting Branson U. But he's going to do something for us today that I think is so important. And I would like, as he comes to the stage, would you all stand? Would you join him and us in our national anthem?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave? Good job, man.
Thank you, David. All right. We're getting close. We're getting close. Before we hear from our mayoral candidates this morning, I've been promised a small update from a former candidate who is now our state representative, and he's got some news for us from Jefferson City. Folks, would you welcome for just a minute Mr. Brian Seitz.
I did a Biden just for you. I've been practicing that all week. I appreciate everyone being here today. I appreciate Branson U for putting this event on. As an elected official, I understand the importance of the decisions that we make, and especially locally. That's where the decisions happen that affect our lives. In the State House, we affect all of Missouri and even nationwide, but we live here. So it's very important to vet our candidates, to understand where they're coming from and the desires that they have to move Branson forward. It's very important. The things that I'm doing in the State House, I'm not going to make this about me, but definitely affect Branson, and hopefully in a very positive, uplifting, Christ-honoring manner. And I just appreciate everybody being here today, and I appreciate Pearl. And if you want a public speaker, it's not me, it's Pearl Haining, okay? She's marvelous, wonderful. So, but I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate the candidates' willingness to speak and share what they would have for Branson's future. So, God bless everyone.
All right. Well, if you've seen any of our promotion at all, you know that the feature of today's event is a live Q&A with our candidates. But what's a Q&A without a moderator? Ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome the Editor-in-Chief of State of the Ozarks, Mr. Joshua Heston.
Thank you. Thank you, Pearl. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much to all of the candidates for taking your time this morning. Before we begin the question-answer portion, I would like to cover our rules of conduct. First of all, as I already said, we deeply appreciate every single person who is in the audience. We know that today we are going to be discussing a lot of issues, including what could be for some hot topic button issues. But this is not the place to throw things, proverbial or otherwise. This is Branson. We know how we treat our neighbors. We are here, and Branson U is here, to educate voters about the candidates. So when candidates answer the questions, please be respectful and let them speak through their answer without interrupting. Please hold your applause until the end of a candidate's answer, and please refrain from booing if you disagree. Ideally, because this is America, we do our best applause and potentially our best booing at the ballot box. For our candidate panel, we are going to, well, first of all, we got, in terms of an engaged public, which I think is a beautiful thing, we got slammed with questions. And I had no idea that so much of my excessive free time this week was going to be spent sorting questions, primarily to ensure that they're topical and that they are appropriate to the situation and to what we're dealing with right now. Along those lines, because we have so much ground to cover, we will be limiting each candidate's time to answer to 2 minutes. So please bear that in mind. If I do interrupt you, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just letting you know that your time has elapsed. So to begin, we will begin on this side and consistently move down through the process. In that, the question in this section, we begin the first section with overall topic questions from Branson U. Then we will transition to overall candidate questions from the public, and then we will conclude with candidate-specific questions submitted by the public. Okay? Our first Branson U public question for everyone, we will begin with Amber, is what is the role of mayor in a Class 4 city? Amber Thompson, you have 2 minutes.
I'm not used to using a microphone. The reason I'm running, and the reason I think anyone should run as a mayor, a politician, etc., at this point in time, because of critical constitutional abuses, is to defend the citizen on a personal level, particularly women and children who don't have a voice, who don't have a microphone. This right now is a very rare occurrence to have a woman, a female that looks under 35, talking on a microphone. And I think that's heavily important. That's the reason why this area in any city should have a female candidate like myself. I'm actually 47, by the way, in a few more days.
If I may interrupt you, the question is, what is the role of mayor in a Class 4 city?
In my opinion at this time, Joshua, it is to defend women and children of critical abuses and defend the people in the public as a whole from serious, critical, constitutional offenses. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Milton. Our tech crew is on it.
Hello? There you go. The mayor in Class 4 city, in my opinion, it provides leadership, guidance, looks at the big picture, provides direction for our community, listens to the community, proceeds over meetings. Class 4 city does have some limitations. I've had some conversations about visiting with Representative Sykes up at Jeff City and see if we have any movement on that. For example, in a Class 4 city, we don't have the right to petition. So a Class 4 city says if the community wanted to have a petition against the city or for a movement, that's just not allowed in a Class 4 city. So Class 4 cities have some limitations that I would like to address at the state level. But other than that, I think it's the voice of the community. It's to provide the confidence, the transparency of what goes on at City Hall. I think it's important for the community to hear a little bit more about the goings-on at the city and help shape some of the codes and ordinances that are placed on you, the residents and businesses. But overall, it's the big picture, staying at 10,000 feet, not getting into the weeds, and making a positive difference for our community.
Thank you. Karen Best.
Thank you, Josh. In my opinion, the role of mayor is to be an ambassador and an advocate for the citizens of the community. You are the face that people come to and meet with when they first come to town. If a new business is coming here, they're going to come and they're going to talk to the mayor, and they're going to get a feel of how the city moves and what the culture is, and that culture has to be very welcoming. It has to be welcoming to businesses, it has to be welcoming to individuals, and it has to give people in our community a way to have their voices heard. They have to be able to email you, text you, call you, and share what their thoughts are. And so when I was mayor, for me, that role was very important to advocate both at the local level, the regional level, the state level, and the federal level. And so having those relationships and being able to tell the story of Branson is one of the critical roles of being mayor. And when you have tragedies or crises that happen in the community, the mayor has to be that person that brings the community together, that unites the community, and moves us forward in a positive look during times of crisis.
Thank you. Mayor Akers.
Thank you very much for coming today. The mayor job is not a politician as far as I'm concerned. It's a public servant job. It's a job that has a responsibility under the statutes of the state of Missouri as oversight for our city government. Aldermen are elected by wards. The mayor is elected by all the people of the city of Branson. And the job of mayor is to help the aldermen, who are the actual voting body, to make good decisions for the benefit of the citizens of Branson. My focus has been to try to seek to find common ground. I realize people disagree, but somehow the mayor has to help us have a direction to go down the road and accomplish what's needed to be accomplished. I appreciate you all coming, and you can go onto our website, the City Branson website, and there is the statutes and information in regard to exactly what the mayor's job is. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. The second question is, could you provide your view on the culture and transparency of City Hall? Amber Thompson, you have 2 minutes.
Well, that's another reason I'm running, because it has been an absolute complete dead wall that citizens are getting when they try to get their voice heard. And I was asked to go to several meetings, and I never really felt comfortable going to a city council meeting. And they said, we're not going to get rid of these masks if someone doesn't speak up. I have a nonprofit I started in 2017 called the Civil Defense Coalition. And again, I really wasn't choosing politics. Politics chose me. I had some serious abuses against my civil rights to keep my own children, and I've got such a preponderance of evidence. I was an elementary school teacher. I also worked in healthcare. I was working in healthcare at the time as a physical therapy assistant. And I saw where court cases like mine don't just get overlooked and don't get defended without attorneys. They get thrown into the corner and buried. And sometimes the victims like myself get buried as well. So transparency would include, my goal is to get some sort of a complaint process in place and divide those complaints into different areas. Property complaints, for instance, if your property tax goes up 400% overnight, I'd like people to know that, and I don't think that should be legal. In some states like Arkansas, there is a settlement type act that was set in place for settlers, and it makes it a guaranteed only $300 a year you have to pay for your home, so as a property tax. There's things like that that I'm also trying to run at a higher level as U.S. Congress against Roy Blunt, which I heard he dropped the race, but hopefully I'll get my voice heard, because again, that's what I would try to most definitely do in that office. Coordinate even cases I'd like people to know the abuse, and police abuse complaints as well. We try to do reform in that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Larry Milton.
Conspiracy going on. Oh, there we go. Silence my voice. I feel like I'm on the Board of Aldermen. Culture and transparency. The only things that should not be transparent is when the Board of Aldermen and the mayor go into an executive session, and there's 3 topics that allow us to go into a private, closed meeting. Any contracts that we're dealing with, any personnel issues, or any legal issues. Other than those 3, and there's reasons why those should be held behind closed doors, other than those 3, I believe everything should be transparent. I think I'm really proud of the city website for the amount of information that is on their website. If you go and look at their reports, go to the report section, it is just full of information. The culture is something to be desired. As I sit on the Board of Aldermen, it is not uncommon for me to be embarrassed on how the residents and businesses are treated and addressed when they're attempting to communicate to the board. There again on the city's website, it says, there's a question on there, how do you address the Board of Aldermen? What's been in writing for as long as I can remember, and I recently looked it up again, it says the speaker gets 5 minutes. The aldermen have 5 minutes to respond, and by alderman choice, they may extend it for 5 minutes. Under our current administration, speakers are giving 3 minutes. It hurts my heart when I see them, the residents being talked down to, not listened to. I think a few of our departments, what we need is a paradigm shift at City Hall. We are the servants. We are not the masters. I feel like the way our city is run today clearly is more of a dictatorship than it is a democracy. So the culture really needs to change at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Mayor Best. Sorry.
I agree.
Mayor Akers. I'm used to calling you Mayor Best. My apologies. Karen Best.
Title still. There you go. I agree with Larry on that. When I first served my first term coming into office, one of the issues that was really hard for me was the culture that at the moment that was at City Hall. People did not feel welcome. They did not feel they had a place for their voices to be heard. And so when I came into office on day 1, that was the message I sent to staff. That was the message I sent to the board, was that this is a safe place. This is where people can come. Doesn't matter if we agree. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree. But even if we disagree, we will be respectful. And I do remember one time in a board meeting where a board member was disrespectful to someone in the audience who later became an alderman. And I had to address that situation from the bench and say that we would not allow disrespect from the bench. That should never happen in our community. I was very embarrassed by it, and that is important to me. It's very important that everyone be treated with respect and dignity. And so for the culture during my administration when I was there was that voices would be heard. I hosted many roundtables. Some of them got a little heated because people didn't like the way we were doing things at City Hall, but we listened and we learned and we changed and altered the way we did things, because that's what we want to be. We want to be a community that's accepting and respectful and treats people with dignity. That's who we are. That's who we've always been. I've lived here for 19 years. I've been coming here since 1967. It's one of the things that I love about this community is we are a community of acceptance and loving and giving. And that's what I think you should see at City Hall. Part of that respect is being transparent and letting people see things. We have nothing to hide. We're public servants, it's been said many times from here. So you have a right to see what's going on. You have a right to see the minutes of the meetings. You have a right to see the budget. You have the right to see the finances. And so that's very important to me and was important to me for the 2 terms that I served as mayor.
Thank you. Ed Akers.
As you all can tell, I'm long in the tooth, been around a long time. And I've always tried to understand people's positions, but tried to seek a common ground. The definition of being open and doing things properly fall different places with different people. I'm sorry there's confusion. The opening session, the time when people can address our alderman at the beginning of the meeting is 5 minutes, and still is 5 minutes. During the process of listening to ordinances and seeking to put input based on the number of people, based on all kinds of issues, you can vary the minutes. I have found that 3 minutes to an ordinance saying whether you're in favor of it or opposed to it is give adequate time for them to explain their position. Now, it can be changed. The alderman can change it. The alderman can ask for a vote to change the dynamics of the meeting. That's their prerogative. But the focus of being transparent, we have folks at our city that specialize in getting out information about what's going on and where it is. I think the intent to try to have a misconception about not wanting to deal with the public. I get calls every day. I visit with people every day. Unfortunately, by email, have you ever gotten an email you didn't know what it was from? You didn't know if it was a Branson citizen or from Spokane, Washington? You ever got a text from someone and you didn't really know where it was from? I get a lot of those. It's people that don't want to have their faces seen, and yet I'm not being transparent. I want you all to know my focus is to give you the best answer I can. You may not like what I tell you, but we can agree to disagree, and then we get on down the road to get our job done. I welcome citizens sharing, and that's been my lifestyle for all these 78 years that I've been here on this earth. And I tend and want to continue that process. Thank you.
The next question is this. The 2019 extended stay population of Branson was over 2,000 residents, 500 of which were children, and the number of extended stay motels have increased from 2 motels in 2005 to over 40 in 2019. What is your response to this situation? Amber Thompson, you have 2 minutes.
Well, number one, as I've already stated, and I totally disagree with some of the commentary. I believe that it has been a collectively, privately shared community. The Republican committee, for instance, at the Capitol, it's a private meeting. We can't even speak. So if we have something we want done, we have to have a law passed to change it, or an attorney to take a case like mine. We have to have a voice. Now, for those citizens you're speaking of, okay, some of them maybe were transplanted through Salvation Army or whichever, or some other individuals like myself, okay, who are trying to find a blue-collar job, and that makes up 80% of Branson, all right? These people can't find good housing. So just because they're living in an extended stay does not mean they're not a good person or a good citizen. It means that the structure, the infrastructure of the city itself, I'm not just picking on Branson, I'm saying anywhere. Branson actually does an excellent job of welcoming those people and making those extended stays extremely affordable. So that I would love to give, commendation for those people doing that. But the thing is, we have to get respect to those people. And the Branson Area Lodging Association has been trying to turn those into long-term apartments. And I think that would be something that would be effective. And again, I'm trying to be a resolution candidate. And they said, we're going to be respectful to other people. I'd definitely like to try to save face and make people feel comfortable if I'm at a meeting. be the newest to the group, but I'd like you to be grateful to candidates like myself for stepping up to stick up for those individuals like that who are blue-collar citizens, who don't have the privileges that these other candidates have here. They don't have the automatic respect, the A+ curriculum vitae, who need to have, again, that edge of understanding how the citizen thinks and feels and their basic needs, which is shelter. I think by turning those into long-term apartments would be an excellent idea, and I would demand it get done. Now, if I offend someone with something I say or the way I speak, it's not because I'm trying to be offensive. It's because sometimes you have to offend to defend. As I said, if there's a
I
baby
appreciate
on the
that.
street...
Your 2 minutes are up now.
Okay, but if there's a
Thank you.
baby...
Larry? Hey, guys.
Get treated the same way on every other Tuesday night. There we go. Who's operating this? That is kind of funny. I'm used to it. The extended stay, that's been a problem in our community for years and years, and it continues to get worse. I do believe at the city level, the can has been kicked down the road far too long. The Lodging Association, as Amber said, that is a great resource to help us develop the plan to address that. I believe the Lodging Association has been to the city a few times. They're trying to get either the zoning or the classification of those units changed with no results, I'm told. I'll assure you that will change. Personally, it hurts my heart when I see the families living in motel rooms. I've heard the stories where family with children and the children are sleeping in the bathtub. I mean, think about that. Motels were not designed for long-term stay. They don't have the safety features. They don't have a kitchen, so many are forced to bring in hot plates, which concerns our fire department. So that's obviously a big issue. Just because you're elected to be an alderman or a mayor doesn't mean you have all the answers. I think we need to reach out to those that are in the industry, listen to their input, and more importantly, not give a quick no. No, we can't do that because the code says X. No, we can't do that because we have an ordinance. This issue is so big, it is time to change codes and time to change ordinances to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
Extended stays was a big issue when I served my 2 terms as mayor, and we worked together with the Lodging Association to come up with a lodging ordinance that gave us a little bit of teeth. We also went to the state level because we needed more teeth, and that's where the changes that Alderman Milton was talking about need to happen at the state level as well. The codes that we did put into place, we were able to close 13 of the extended stay motels because they were not safe. That's the #1 priority for folks that are living in extended stays, is to make sure that they have a safe environment to where them and their children and their family members are not going to be hurt. And so that was our #1 priority. I can also tell you that they're not affordable. If you haven't checked into what it costs to stay at an extended stay motel, it's $900 a month. And that can get you into a condo, that can get you into a tiny home. So that was the approach we took, was looking at ways to increase affordable housing. I was asked by President Trump to come to the White House to talk about the issues in our community. For those of you who don't know, I'm a Christian conservative. He wouldn't invite me there if I wasn't, I can guarantee you that. But by going there and sharing our story, we were able to get access to some funding. And I can tell you that Elevate Branson and the Tiny House Project went for some of that funding that we were able to get from Washington, D.C. to come to our community. Those are the types of things that we need. Those are the types of programs that we need the mayor and the aldermen to advocate for, is getting those funds here to where we can build affordable housing so that people won't be paying $900 a month to stay in an extended stay.
Thank you. Mayor Akers.
Thank you. poverty. Our community is not immune to poverty. It's not immune to people coming here because we're a very popular place. We have a lot of jobs in the summer where people can come and work. And the issues of motels turning into apartments is a huge issue. We've closed. The health department works with us to help get those closed that are the worst offenders. But COVID kind of affected that a little bit. You just didn't kick people out during COVID time. That was a national event. A lot of folks that were in apartments and in different circumstances paid rent were not kicked out during those times. So it slowed us down. But the effect is that we're seeking to understand to help Blayla. Blayla's already had their candidate forum and addressed the issue specifically about the fact that Blayla's working now at the state level. Hope Representative Seitz will see something soon from them in regard to the wording on the classification of motels and on converted properties. It's important that we recognize that we need a labor force here in the city. And so there's a real difficult decision between having people available to work and having places for people to live. Less than 4% of our city employees live in the city of Branson. Why is that? Because it's expensive to live in the city of Branson. We've got to be able to bring in affordable housing, and we've got 2 projects going right now to help that situation. I think the community, and hope they understand, that the societal issues we have today with drug and alcohol and poverty issues are everywhere. But we're trying to do our best to help Branson be able to deal with it. We'll never solve it. We'll never get it done, but we can make a good dent in it. And that's the approach that we need to take. Thank you.
The next question is this. The J-1 visa program brings many workers to Branson for low-wage employment. Although Branson has, of course, a very comparatively small population, the population of the county is over 55,000. Do programs like the J-1 visa program drive down local wages? Amber Thompson, you have 2 minutes.
I'm not familiar with that visa program, just so you know. Oh, well, just being honest, transparent. But I do see where employees have been picked up in huge hordes and paid to thrown up here to Branson to work as immigrants, all right, from Puerto Rico, et cetera. I'm on a ban list, okay, of employment at Westgate, the entire resort. They wouldn't tell me why, all right? But again, this is why I'm trying to bring up some very important points. The Branson native here that's been here their whole entire life, in my opinion, should be put first, okay? Especially when they have homes here, families here, and there's no transparency. As I was mentioned before, if there's a baby in the street, all right, that needs saved, are we gonna have a planning and zoning committee about it? Is Karen and Ed gonna start with their, budget and finance committee to shift their friends around more money? But I'm trying to help out the individual citizen, the contractors who've lived their whole life that can't get a contract job with the city. And I'm a very quick learner, so I can learn all about these visa programs, et cetera. I have written legislation for state levels. But here's a picture of me breastfeeding my daughter, okay? This is transparency, and the sheriff people in the front row or whichever throw their hands up in shock. Because I've presented this in court in Branson, and I presented my case to Ed Akers, who doesn't resolve personal problems like mine. They've known me here my whole entire life, all right? And they said that they had to remove my child from my home. I was living in Arkansas, and the state police, the state of Missouri, the state of Arkansas's police as well, allowed an infant to be taken from Salem Springs, Arkansas, and thrown way up here to strangers. We don't even know where she's at. Is this a transparent city? You tell me that. Is this a transparent city? This is time for police reform and serious reform. Where is my daughter? Why is Ed Akers not willing to help bring this case to the media? My case should be the Breonna Taylor
Thank you
case
very much,
of
Amber.
Missouri. Think that through.
Larry Milton. You're on.
The J1 program, in my opinion, is vital to our community. If you think about the number of employees Branson requires for all the lodging properties, our theaters, shows, attractions, shopping, across the board. I've been a businessman in this town for 27 years, and I will tell you firsthand, finding good labor is one of the biggest issues that any employer in Branson has. I do not think it drives down the wages. My wife and I have always operated on the other spectrum, where we know with supply and demand, there's only so many employees, there's so much demand for them, that we pay our employees very well, we respect them, we respect their time off with families, treat them the way that I would want to be treated if I was in their shoes. And so I think it's an economic question. If you want good employees and there are not enough of them, you need to pay them well. And that's worked for us in our businesses. If we didn't have J1, our problem finding employees would be much, much worse than it is today. So I do not think it drives down labor. We have not employed any J1. We've gone the other side of just attracting those in our area and making it beneficial for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Karen.
The J1 employees are vital for our community. If you don't believe they're vital, drive around right now and look at all of the help wanted signs, all of the bonuses that are going to people because we don't have enough bodies to fill the jobs that we have in our area. When I was mayor, that was one of the hot topics for businesses. They came to me constantly asking for us to fight for the J1s because not having the J1s would result in a wing of their hotel not being open. Not having J1s would result in part of their restaurants not being open. And so we have so many businesses that rely on the J1s to get that done. I don't believe that them coming to fill those jobs drives our wages down at all. Talking with the owner of Chick-fil-A, he had a very nice bonus for someone who would come and stay employed with him for 6 weeks. He asked me, how many employees do you think got their bonus for staying for 6 weeks? I thought it would be a good number, and he said 0. 0 employees stayed the 6 weeks to get the bonus. Same with McDonald's. So those are the jobs that are needing to be filled. They're not the higher paid jobs. They're the more minimum wage or a little over jobs that a lot of people are not wanting to take because the people in our community are wanting the higher paid jobs. You know, we don't have the 12-month economy, which is what we're trying to push forward to go to, so that we can attract people that will be here and stay here and can get a living wage for those 12 months. So J1s have to be here, they have to be employed, or we as a tourism community will not be successful.
Ed Akers.
Thank you. A good current question. This community battles because of our economy to try to get good employees. The real base issue is like Larry alluded to, people need to be paid. Supply and demand. The J1 program simply supplements what we need. It doesn't solve any problems, just helps us be able to have more employees. We've got to be fully aware that we have an active chamber committee that works on employment for the area. Their job is to focus on trying to find either regional situations where they can bus people in to work for a period of time. If any of you all have ever been on a cruise ship, you set up contracts with employees and they come and serve on the cruise ship for a period of time, looking into all kinds of ways to bring additional employees to our community. The J1 is just an approach that is an efficient approach and is a good approach to help be able to fill the needs we have. I have asked the Chamber to consider a program for seniors. Many of our seniors are retiring early. Some of us, even after 70 years of age, still like to work. And there are people that are in those programs could help fill maybe some of the positions in this community. particularly in the theater industry, for ushers and folks that can come in and they're good workers, they're on time. It's a community-wide problem. I encourage us to continue to work on it, and we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I just want to let you all know we will conclude the panel session with 2 minutes of closing remarks per candidate. So on that vein, I do ask that each candidate keep their responses in this point specifically topical to the questions at hand. This question: what is your analysis of the Branson tourism tax? Amber Thompson, you have 2 minutes.
Well, as long as the tax is not overburdening the citizen, again, I'm really very concerned about the local citizen, and that's yourself. You're a resident of Branson. And this is a tourism tax, but we still get affected by that very heavily. But really, this is one of the lowest cost living areas in the United States. And that's why I bring to the table something these other candidates don't have in regards to, again, a tourism tax. I can see where the larger picture, if you try to live down in Texas, okay, the lowest rent you can find is $800 in Dallas. Now, that includes even the smaller towns outside of there. People don't realize. And what is the minimum wage for a blue-collar worker? When you ask and call around to the different areas to find a place to live, you can't find a place to live because they want 3 times the rent. The rent is $1,200, $1,100. And you'd have to make $3,300 a month. How many people here raise your hand if you make more than $3,300 a month? If you're in 80% of this city, which I represent, being in that position, again, I see the outside of the box. I don't just see, a small problem. I see a larger problem. And that's why, again, I'm running for a higher level in Senate, and I've already created legislation to pass, and I would be willing for something like that if there was a problem with the tourism tax or whichever issue we're discussing. If need be, then I needed to address issues with blind sites or bring issues up to the sheriff's station, whichever. I'm willing to address issues that they're not willing to address. I'm not aloof, I'm not apathetic, I'm not overlooking your needs and your heart. And that's your family. You should have the right to have your own family. You should have the right to see and visit with your own family. And most definitely, you should have the right to go in life without being oppressed of your breathing and respiratory issues. A lot of us have health problems, and I have that issue too.
Thank you very much. Your 2 minutes.
Medical.
Thank you. Larry Milton.
The tourism tax. Tourism tax in our community is vital. If you think about it, we're a community of roughly 12,000 people. During any given day, we can have a population in Branson of 50 to 80,000 people. So when the last person turns on their faucet in the shower, when there's 80,000 people in town, water has to come out of the spigot. So it would be unrealistic and a burden that the residents simply could not afford is to pay for all of the infrastructure that this tax, that 75% of this tax goes to. So in theory, I think it's very sound. I'm told that, and I've been given different numbers, but roughly 80% of this tax is paid by the visitors, and it should be because it's the additional infrastructure that's required because of the visitors coming in. I have addressed a few issues where our residents are also paying the same tax, right? We pay if you go to any attraction, lodging, theater, you all are paying this 4% tourism tax. When you go to a restaurant, you're paying the extra 5% tax. Taney County has their 1% retail tax. So living here, there's a cost of, we as residents are paying a portion of that. I would like to see ways where the city can reduce your burden to compensate for each one of us. When you go to Walmart and shop, you're paying an extra tax that cities next door across the state, the residents are not paying that. 25% of that goes to, of the tourism tax goes to marketing our area. That's vital if you believe in growth, if you believe that growth is good for our community. We are a tourist destination. We need to spend the money for marketing to bring more visitors to Branson. Now, if the question was, how are those dollars being spent, that's a different question. But the reality is, we need to have the tourism tax.
Thank you. Karen Best.
Can I see a show of hands of how many people do not like paying taxes? I am with you. I am one of them. Every time I fill out that personal property tax or any other tax, real estate tax, I just cringe writing the check. But unfortunately, it is necessary. And I tell you, when it comes to the tourism tax, if I have to pay 80% of the tax or 20% of the tax, how many of you would rather pay 20% instead of 80%? That's me. I want the least amount that I have to pay as a resident. And so my fear is if the tourism tax doesn't pass, where's the 75% for infrastructure going to come from? It's got to come from somewhere, and it's going to come from you and me instead of our visitors. And our visitors are the reason, as Larry said, why we have to have the extra infrastructure. So I think it's very important for the tourism tax to pass. And it's not just one tax, it's two separate issues on the ballot. So if you want to have our visitors pay the majority and the bulk of that tax, you need to vote yes on both of those issues. If you would rather, as a citizen, pay the large portion of that tax yourself, then you would vote no on both of those issues. But as I said before, I support it because I would rather our visitors who are using that infrastructure the most bear the most of the burden to pay for that tax.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Ed
Karen, for
Eggers.
sharing that. As a publicly elected official, I can't tell you how to vote on this issue because it affects our city. That's by law. But I can give you information and encourage you to get out and vote and see the benefit that the tourism tax has for this community. We alluded to it earlier about the fact that we're a community of 13 or 14,000 when we see the final census figures, yet we invite 50 or 60,000 people come spend the night with us each night. And so that gets to be a big house with lots of bathrooms and lots of things going on to invite all these folks to come here and share this place we love in Branson, Missouri. This community has been amazing to be able to look ahead. We built a sewer treatment plant down on Cooper Creek. We built infrastructure, and we're still building infrastructure, but there's a project of over $93 million being requested in bonds when you vote. That 0.5% for restaurants doesn't get 93. That 93 remains the same. The 4% for lodging and not groceries and not medicines and not new cars goes toward infrastructure. There's 75% of that 4% goes directly to infrastructure, 25% to marketing, and the 0.5%, the same percentages apply. It's critical for our area to be able to continue to invite people to come and join and enjoy what we enjoy. But it's also critical that we plan ahead and take care of our infrastructure in this community, and those funds are needed. I appreciate you researching, checking out the issue, and verifying that, yes, you should vote, and vote your conscience. Thank you.
Branson is currently over $170 million in debt. Do you believe this debt is due to spending issues or revenue issues? Do you believe this debt is due to spending issues or revenue issues? And please keep your response specifically topical.
Well, again, we have very stubborn people that have been in, not just in office, but have owned the theaters, if you ask me. Because I spoke to Ed, I said, why don't we have, and some of the theater owners, why don't we have a political show? You know, that would bring in some probably higher income individuals to the area who like to watch CNN and Fox News, who are interested in political activism, who would like to see change on a real basis, and may bring in some better candidates who are actually going to get some things done. So I definitely think that revenue could be brought up, most definitely. And that's why I think I'm an excellent candidate, because I also, of those who aren't aware, I'm a book writer, I'm an author, and I'm also a singer-songwriter. I have a CD called The Intro, and I go over these civil rights issues, some of my songs, and family rights and friendly rights. Well, if you look at what has been going on with the Branson Downtown Betterment Association, it's been a continual older lady, older male party. The Lady Piccadilly's gala. They don't invite younger people. So I really hope they would vote for me, because I would bring in that dance entertainment of a public voice cheer squad. I'd like to get even the Hollister cheer squad and dance teams to come in and help us push for civil rights, help us push for a higher level entertainment value, and bring in a higher quality name to Branson, which would increase our revenue. I do think they heavily overspend. So answer to your question, it's a spending problem. And that's the trouble. I'm a penny pincher. I've lived on a blue-collar budget my whole life. I've worked for everything I have. And I've been an object of sex discrimination once I had my child. And so that has reached, thank God in heaven, it has reached the higher courts of the Capitol right now with the Equal Rights Act, where they're trying to recognize that women discrimination like mine, where we're banned of employment. Again, why am I trying to be elected? They won't hire me here, okay? So that's, again, why I'm trying to wake up. I was baptized by Jay Scribner in the front row, okay? My
Thank you,
dad, I'm
Amber.
wearing my dad's
Thank
U.S.
you. Your 2
Army
minutes
Corps of
are up.
Engineers.
Your 2 minutes are up. Larry Milton.
I'm going with trust on this one. Good job. Spending and revenue. Pre-COVID, city budget was give or take $80 million a year. Post-COVID, I believe we're around $62 million a year. So we bring in, for a small community, we bring in a lot of revenue. How the money is spent, in my opinion, is something that really, really needs to be addressed. Just to make a long story short, one example of maybe not making the best decisions on how to spend our money is when the city decided to pay $1 million for a statue, right? So I don't know what our economic conditions were at the time. I see how the money's allocated and where it goes. I've said many times the city does not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. I think it's priorities. I know the vast majority of our focus is infrastructure, business, tourism. I would sure like to see a little shift in that needle and apply some of the city funds to increase the quality of life for those that live and work and play in Branson. I'll leave it at that.
Karen Vest.
I agree with Alderman Milton. Unfortunately, when you sit in the mayor's seat, and Mayor Akers can vouch for this, you don't get to make the decisions on how the money's spent. Those decisions are made at the alderman level. The aldermen are the legislative body, and so that's who decides when and how money is going to be spent. When we step into the mayor's office, we inherit previous debt from previous mayors. And so a large part of the $170 million is for the Branson Landing. That was done way before anybody sitting up on this stage was ever in office. So you inherit those debts. When you buy a fire truck costs anywhere from $1.5 million to $2 million. So those are things that we have found that when you buy your house, you pay a mortgage. We have found that in buying police cars and buying fire trucks, it's easier for us to lease those than it is to pay for them outright. The city currently has 250 vehicles, pieces of equipment that they have to maintain. Those take money. And so I agree with Alderman Milton, yes, there are spending things that can be changed. When I first stepped into the mayor's seat, I was just appalled at all the things that I saw, and we worked hard to firm up some of those things. We put a lot of things into practice. We put procedures in practice. When I first came in and asked how much have we spent on the downtown project and how much have we spent on the 76 project, Nobody could give me an answer. There was nothing that showed how much had been spent. And so Alderwoman C and myself worked together to get new procedures put in place so that we would know exactly where those pennies were going, because nobody knew that before. And so it's very important moving forward that you put those procedures into place so that you can start tracking things. And we had a project where they had purchased radios, and we're like, where are these radios?
Thank
and
you so
nobody
much,
knew where they
Karen.
were.
Ed Akers.
Thank you. Obviously, people have different opinions about whether we're spending or whether we're overspending our revenue. Last year was a real telling time. We cut the city budget down to the bare bones. We anticipated 45% off of our budget for income for 2020 because of the COVID situation. We ended up the year better than that. Overall, about 30% down. I never thought I'd be happy with only being 30% down, but that's a lot better than 45%. The city is like every city in the state of Missouri. They have an audit, and it's a certified audit. And they come in and verify balances. Governmental accounting, my background is accounting. Governmental accounting has its own silos, and you can't take funds from one silo and put it to another one. The simplest one I can give you, the school board. School board has 3 funds: general fund, teacher's fund, and debt fund. You can't take money from any one of those funds to the other fund. You have to spend it where you have legislated and voted for it to be spent. The citizens of Branson, I believe, if you will take your time, we have an excellent accounting team at our city. We have an excellent proposal showing the budget for the coming year and the budget items to be expended. It's very conservative. Yes, we were 80 million, now we're down to 63 million. But that was done on purpose because not knowing what 2021 might bring. I think you have a very conservative city government, a very conservative group that are overseeing the finances. Mr. Milton and I both serve on the Finance Committee, and we have the opportunity at the Finance Committee to review all expenditures and all information. That's the time we then send it on to the aldermen to vote.
Thank you. Branson City Council will discuss the repeal of the mask mandate on Tuesday. Do you support a repeal? And also, would you support another mask mandate or shutdown if the number of COVID cases rose again and professional medical industry suggested this action? Amber
I'd like
Thompson.
to stand up just to make a point that you remember what I said today, because there's a million of these meetings across the United States and the same thing gets talked about. But nobody stands up for your constitutional right. No one says enough is enough. And they say people like me are crazy, and they bring in their policemen in the back and try to write up their reports and pretend they're like they're psychologists to call us nuts because we're not allowed to show our emotion in public. And we have a preacher that tells us, we've known our whole childhood every Sunday, that says, God cut us here to have the abundant life. If you want to live the abundant life, you have to show your emotion. You have to show your fear. You have to show your respect. But you also have to show your joy, your anger, because there's a righteous anger. And that righteous anger comes from God. And we do not have public conviction in these other candidates. You need to vote for me if you want to hear on a national level. Hopefully we can get national news on our politicians at Brian Seitz. I'd like to team up if they can help me to get even a meet up with Governor Parsons. I have friends who are cousins with these people. Why won't they open the door? Are women and children, are the people in the audience not important enough to hear their story? You think that through. 200%. Your life is important. On your death day, on your dying day, are you going to say, oh my gosh, I wish I'd voted for Ed. I wish I'd voted for Larry again. I wish I'd voted for Karen. She looks so cute in that homecoming queen crown. I'd like to make her homecoming queen again. And Ed, he's been homecoming king how many times? We got to make them more important than everybody in this stage, everybody in this whole entire area again. And Larry comes from California. We don't know where he's from. Or is he
Amber,
part of the entertainment industry? We'd like to know.
Please keep the.
I'd like the natives here to be important. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Milton.
Do I support repealing the mask mandate at Tuesday night's meeting? Any guesses? I am champion that. For sure, we need to pass that Tuesday night. I've asked for this a month ago. I've asked for it 6 months ago, 8 months ago when we first started. When the very first mask mandate was proposed to City Council, may not be a surprise, vote was 5-1. I've been fighting to not have this mask mandate from day one. Would I impose it again? I think that's a pretty obvious answer. No. I just don't support it. I wouldn't reinstate it. It should have never happened, in my opinion. I think it should have been left up to choices. I think businesses should be able to choose if they want to mandate a mask. I think if residents or visitors feel more comfortable wearing a mask, God bless them, they should. They should go visit the stores that mandate masks, but it shouldn't be imposed across the board to every one of us. I believe that is a... So I don't think I need to spend much time on this topic. I think the voters know where my mindset is on the mask mandate.
Thank you, Larry. Karen.
I agree with Alderman Milton. I do not feel that the mask mandate needs to be in place. From the very beginning, I contacted every alderman and asked them not to vote for the mask mandate. That doesn't mean I don't wear a mask. I wear a mask 90% of the time. I have a sweet daddy down here that's 82 years old that has low-grade leukemia, and I believe in protecting him. But I believe that it should be up to each individual whether they wear a mask or not. I have spent a few weeks talking to the major employers in town, talking to businesses in town, and I asked them, if the mask mandate was repealed, would you continue to require masks? 100% of the people I've talked to that own the businesses and own and have establishments, they have agreed that they would continue the mask mandate. That's great. That's their prerogative. That's their business. It's up to us whether we want to go into a business that requires masks or us to go into a business that does not. And so I have been from the very beginning against the mandate. We don't have police to manage that. They have bigger things to do, like drug issues in the community, et cetera. So I have not supported the mask mandate from the beginning, much to the dismay of a lot of people, but I have encouraged people to mask up in the past.
Thank you. Ed Akers.
Thank you. Obviously, I wear a mask for a reason, to share with you that I believe it's a way of helping to keep from spreading a disease. The whole thing, the whole time, is to slow down the virus. If you don't believe it's a disease or a virus, I understand. If you don't want to believe it for some other reason, because you have political or religious reasons, I understand. But note, please, we get information. We seek information. I'm an accountant by background. That's my deal. Get facts and information. And it's been 5-1 for a reason, because 5 of your 6 aldermen believe that it ought to be an ordinance, and it continues to be. Tuesday night, we're doing exactly what we said we would do from the get-go. When we said that we were going to extend it without a deadline, we would review it and bring it back when it was ready. Thank you, ma'am, for doing that. I appreciate that. The purpose of our community and the purpose of government is to seek to help the safety of the citizens. And I believe that your citizens, the majority of your citizens, believe that we ought to try to be as safe as possible. Masking is a way to try to help slow the spread. The proof's in the pudding. We were open. Branson stayed open all during the tourism season. There were several parts of the country that didn't. There were music shows shut down in Las Vegas, and they came here and they were able to play here. One of our entertainers shared that. It's important that we look at the big picture. We were just recognized as the 4th safest city in America for people to be able to come to. What does that mean? Economically, that means people will come here to pay job, salaries, all the things that need to be taking place for us to be able to operate. Please recognize, and hopefully you'll understand.
Thank you very much, Airman. At this point, we are going to shift. Those were our broad topic Branson U questions. At this point, we are going to shift to public questions that we received over the last several weeks from, of course, you all. And the first question is, although this is a nonpartisan city election, are you a Republican or a Democrat? Amber Thompson.
I'm glad you asked that. I've been a lifelong Republican and Republican family. However, as I mentioned in our last meeting, the Republican Party's gotten way too greedy. And again, they refuse to take on cases like mine. I've talked directly eye to eye with Republican high-end politicians such as Billy Long. They want nothing to do with helping the individual with any type, and as a whole, recognition of constitutional abuse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Milton.
I'm a proud Republican. I'm a conservative. I just don't say the words. I'm a Republican. I am a true Republican.
Karen.
I'm a Republican conservative, and if you don't believe me, you can ask Governor Parson or Congressman Long, because they know how I fought for conservative values over the years.
By state statute, the positions of alderman and mayor are nonpartisan positions. 30 years ago, I don't know if you've noticed that Taney County is a Republican county. 30 years ago, I ran as a Democrat for presiding commissioner. A long time ago, the Democratic Party left me. There are parts of the Republican Party I don't care for. So I'm an independent, and I vote for the person. I vote for the person I believe will do the best job. I tell you that I voted for President Trump, and I'm disappointed he was not reelected. I vote for the person I think that can get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Second public question. Our crime and homelessness issues have risen over the past 6 years. Crime, especially vandalism and theft, is on the rise. The sale and use of illegal drugs has increased as more individuals are brought to Branson to seek treatment but left without jobs after that treatment has ended, and our extended stay motels have increased exponentially. I realize this is a multi-part question. Please bear in mind, we are taking questions from the public. So, what has led to these issues, and what would you do to fix the problem? Amber.
Well, again, this goes back to the problem I identified when you first started asking questions. The heart. There's a real problem. They think they can put a Band-Aid on your forehead and say you're cured. It doesn't work that way. These children need, at the base level in the school system, needs to go back to Nancy Reagan days. Nancy Reagan started a campaign, one of my favorite people, just say no. That was in process when I was in school. And I'd always clicked in my mind. They had actual videos you'd watch of Little House on the Prairie, little Albert throwing up because he was on morphine. These prescription pills that are being prescribed to us are also very brain damaging and illegal. And that's probably one of the reasons why some of these people can't find jobs, is because they come out of quote-unquote psych treatment more brain damaged than they were when they went in. And we don't have any politicians willing to address that. And that's something I'm trying to do again on a higher level, but it starts on a community level. And I would try to install some sort of an anti-drug program. What works? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already there. You just need to put it in place and put a heart to it. Show one-on-one connection with those kids and show that you care. I think they really, this area, as all these cities, are crying out for someone like myself to be a public speaker, to speak to individuals and groups as a whole. And these children need to see someone like myself who's got a good heart, who has unconditional love. Someone's going to love them no matter what. If they fail a test, it doesn't matter. As long as they are approved of and respected on an unconditional level, that will show through. And they'll start to love themselves. They'll say, okay, I'm worse. Even my dad was a drug addict. I'm not going to do that, And I'll surround myself with good friends, and I'll encourage my friends to do the right thing. I think, again, it comes to a heart level, a community basis, and I think a school program would be great. I already have an idea with ERP I mentioned about an emotional release program, drama-based issue where we can help end the shooting. These kids end up watching all these video games and going nuts.
Larry.
My heart goes out to those that are homeless. They've worked hard. They've done their best. They've tried. Life throws them a curve. I just can't imagine being homeless. I just think that we as a society owe it to them to give them not a handout, but a hand up. What we're experiencing in Branson is there's organizations that work through the court systems in other cities within Missouri, other states. The individual is under drug charges, given a choice. You want to go to Branson, to a rehab center, or jail? When they come to Branson, what I've been told is about 18, in one of the organizations, they have about an 18% success rate. God bless those 18%, right? Change their lives. The question we're facing is what happens to the other 82%, right? They end up with what we keep talking about as our homeless and extended stay issues. And I believe there's a percentage of them, because they didn't fulfill their drug treatment program, logic says they're going to stay on drugs, and now we have that problem, which leads to crime. So the first thing we need to do is, this is a small community. We have enough resources to take care of our own. We do not have the resources to take care of the hundreds that are brought into Branson every year. So this is a long process. There's not going to be any magic bullets. It really is an issue with a lot of tentacles to it. One of the tentacles is, I think we're spinning our wheels trying to handle our homeless problem here until we address the influx of them coming in town. We need to put our finger in the dam, stop the inflow, and then I think as a community we can start addressing some of these issues.
Thank you, Larry. Karen.
I agree with Larry 100%. When I was serving as mayor for my 2 terms, that was a really important issue for me. I lobbied hard for it at the state level and the federal level to help get some assistance for us, to get laws changed to where if a person is brought to a community for residential drug treatment, that part of that plan was if they failed the plan, they had to go back to where they came from. That's just common sense. If a judge sent them here, I'm sorry, judge, you get them back if they fail the program. I did request meetings with some of the folks who were connected with the organizations that were importing the folks fighting addiction to our community. I will tell you, at one of the meetings, I brought up my concern, and the person said, I'm not having this conversation with you, and got up and left the room. That's not finding a solution to me. That's being part of the problem. And so we've got to have some serious conversations with people in our community to where we can get these things taken care of and done. Like Alderman Milton, I am all for helping those in our community. I have family members that have fought addiction. I have friends who have fought addiction, and it is a terrible disease. It is awful. It tears families apart, and it tears communities apart. And we've watched over the years as it's torn this community apart. And so we have to work together with state and federal legislators to give us some teeth and some backbone to be able to address the issue. And once people fail the program, send them back to their sending communities instead of leaving them here to where they are roaming our streets with no job, no home, breaking into your car, breaking into your home, and stealing so that they can support the habit. And mental health is also an important piece of that. We have to help get them mental health services as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Over 35 years ago, I worked with an organization called Church Army. They came to our community. We had a tent city out by Blakemore Lures that was built out of cardboard. We had people sleeping under bridges in this community. There was a homeless problem then. There's a homeless problem now. There's also a problem with drug and alcohol abuse. And if any of you've suffered that in your family and know about the issues that go on, it's not a pretty sight. It's messy business. But there are over 12 organizations in our community that deal with it. There's 4 that are for-profit, there's 8 that's nonprofit, that deal with drug and alcohol abuse. There are different philosophies of dealing with people. Not all of them can be put in the same can that they bring people here and then put them out on the street. The seeking is to try to help people get their life back together. The success rate is terrible. 18%, actually 17% is the statewide level. This is a problem that we are not the only one that has it in our community. But I've actually worked with it. I've been involved in it. I've sat on boards trying to help to make decisions for the future. One of the huge issues we have right now is we do not have a detox center. We don't have any place that the police can take someone that's high on drugs to get down from that. The Simmering Center no longer does that. That was the location years ago. We need a detox center to take people that are in trouble. Can we stop them coming here? I believe a large percentage of them come here looking for work. They have to be able to bring money in to be able to do what they need to do to take care of their habit. Folks, it's not an easy situation, and it will not be solved, as Larry said, overnight.
Thank
But
you
I'm
very
actually
much,
dealing
Mayor
with it.
Akers.
Thank you.
Have any of you reached out to the recently elected state representative to discuss how you all can work together on issues if you are elected? Amber.
Is it on? Yeah. I've reached out more than I can count on my fingers and my toes, to be honest with you. I emailed and every single state's
Yes, thank
Senate
you.
and House.
The specific question is, have you reached out to our recently elected state representative? Yes or no?
Recently elected, which one? Are you in particular?
We're specifically talking about the one for this district.
You're talking about Mayor Akers?
No.
You're talking about Brian Sides?
Yes.
In particular. I've tried to email him. Some of these, this is a question we have, some of these candidates we have, let's say if Karen became a House of Reps
The
for
answer
the
is
state.
yes or no. Have you? You have
I'd appreciate if you
out.
treat me kinder as you do the other ones here.
What's that?
I would appreciate. I have talked to him, yes. I actually went to meetings with him called the non-essential meeting right over there. They have it over at the not the Hughes, the Hughes Theater, the Star
you very
Theater.
much.
And I've encouraged everyone to go to that so you can meet him and hear him speak and talk about the laws he's passed, which are heavily on constitutional rights. I'm a huge thumbs up to Brian Sides, and I know Larry's on the constitutional side with me.
Thank you, Amber. Larry.
Yes, I have. I've reached out to Representative Seitz. We are very like-minded. We have some issues at the state level that'll help our community improve, and our relationship is so strong that Representative Sykes has actually endorsed me to be the mayor of Branson. Thank you.
Karen.
I have to answer that in 2 parts.
Okay.
Have I, since he's been elected? No. If I were sitting in the mayor's position, would I? Absolutely. We would have to work together to get things done. But not being a seated elected official, that is not my role at the moment. But the other 2 sitting on each side of me should have.
Thank you.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Akers.
We have a legislative committee at the city. We've reached out to Brian Sites through the legislative committee, and currently we're writing a letter in regard to support of a bill that he's endorsing through our first responders.
Okay. Thank you. Downtown business owners have voiced strong opposition to parking meters, fearing that will drive tourists away from downtown. Yet it appears the current city council and mayor intend to move forward with the plans. If elected or re-elected, how would you address this? Amber.
I would be, I would be against meters because anyone that's visited a big city, it's a huge pain. You have to worry about a ticket and you have to worry about your car potentially being towed. And that's actually happened to me, and it's a horror film. I had to walk for miles to get back to my house. And my friend on his bicycle, addressed me. So the thing is, looking at comparison of big city to small city, that's another reason why I think I'm a great candidate. Because I've lived in a big city, I've lived in metropolitan horror where, yeah, you can get shot on a daily basis by stepping outside your front door. They don't have those issues here. And that's why one of my things I want to address was police reform, because this is a safe area
Thank you
on a
very
whole,
much.
and we need to make a better police station.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was a director on the DBBA board, and our downtown, that's a whole nother question, but when it came up for the parking meters, I reached out to DBBA, I reached out to the downtown businesses. What I heard personally from them was they were overwhelmingly against it. So I took their voice to City Hall, expressed my opinions. The current board, I don't know, well, there's no time for the current board to make any decisions, and I was overruled. However, going into this, after the election cycle, with the aldermen, we'll have the majority of the vote, and we will do nothing more than listen to the people, and the downtown businesses that would be directly affected are the ones we need to listen to. Thank you.
Karen.
When I was mayor, that was one of the hot topics, and we did our research, and we provided the downtown businesses with the research that we had collected. We invited them to City Hall for a meeting. It was a very heated discussion, but it was very evident that they did not support the parking meters, and so we did not move forward with that process. One of the conversations that did happen, though, was moving forward with Phase 4 and Phase 5 of the downtown project, was that there was no way to fund that project moving forward. So parking meters was one of the items that was discussed to help fund that. So once again, when you go back into that office, things have changed in the last 2 years. Is it something that they would entertain? Maybe. Is it something they would not entertain? Maybe. But I think it's important to bring them back to the table and have those conversations. And it's their businesses, and those are the things that are affected. So we have to listen to them and move forward with the direction they want to go.
Mayor Akers.
Hearing aids and these masks aren't too cooperative sometimes. The Downtown Association, DBBA, is trying to get information. They held a public forum. They had discussion down at the Owen Theater. The city has been trying to find a way to fund the downtown project. Original $4 million project, to finish it's going to be about $18 million. We're about $6 million short at this time. And so trying to find a way to be able to figure out the problem for downtown. It's not just a parking meter problem, it's really an overall parking problem. We have to come up with a plan to be able to take care of the employees who now park in front of the businesses. They watch for the person to come along marking their tires, and then they move their vehicle. We need to have customers parking in those spaces. We need to find a place for the employees that work there to be able to park, and whether it be a shuttle system or whatever. The answer is that we need to solve a problem that we have an expense, but we don't have any money for.
Thank you. A recently proposed pet ordinance involving microchipping has created strong feelings in the community. Do you agree or disagree with the ordinance, yes or no? And did the city communicate the measure well to the public? Amber.
They're trying to mandate that your pets get chipped.
Are you familiar with the ordinance?
But that's what you're telling me. That's what the ordinance says, that they're mandating all Branson pets have to be chipped.
I believe so. This was a publicly provided
Well,
question.
In my opinion, again, that shouldn't even be like on the ballot. All right, this last election we had a question. They always try to con artists and trick you out with their oratorial speeches. They talk real soft, like they're very understanding and compassionate. When it comes down to it, this is leading a step to, in my opinion, and people may say that's overboard, but I think they're overboard because that goes to freedom. You can't be stalked because the next step is chipping humans. And as you've seen people advertise, and I advertise nationwide on social media, et cetera, and Chinese social globalism.
Thank you very much, Amber.
This is an important topic, not the pet ordinance itself. What's important is how the process worked. I can't tell you after that meeting I could spit nails. where do I start? We had an alderman at the very beginning of the meeting acknowledge he had not had time to read the documents. He'd briefly gone through it, asked to postpone it, which is a logical request. This document is 45 pages long, 2,400 lines of text. It's a novel. As we continue to have discussions, at the beginning of the meeting we had one speaker. So I'm raising the question, how did we communicate this ordinance that will impact the majority of Branson residences and advise them we're going to have this meeting? Have we reached out and asked for community input? The answer I received, when I say change the culture and policy at City Hall, I want you to hear this. The response from city staff was, Alderman Milton, what else did you want us to do? We followed standard operating procedures. I'm here to tell you, standard operating procedures need to change. This issue has such an impact on the majority of the people that live here. And having I raised the point, one speaker shows up and we think we advise the community of what we're talking about doing. So I make a motion to postpone this meeting until we have community input. 3 aldermen voted yes, let's postpone it. 3 aldermen voted no, let's not postpone it, let's go for the vote. Mayor Akers voted not to postpone it, let's go for the vote. I could have fallen out of my chair, especially when he heard there's aldermen that haven't even had a chance to read this. So we get to the end, we go to vote on this, and sure enough, the ordinance passed 4-2. Can you imagine that? This ordinance passed 4-2, 45 pages, aldermen admitting they hadn't even had a chance to read it, 0 community input. I'm telling you, when I say policies and culture need to change, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Karen.
I can tell you when I was mayor, the pet ordinance reared its head up. We talked about it, we discussed it, we did gather input from the community, and the community overwhelmingly was against it, as I believe they probably should have been. I don't own a pet, so I can't say for me personally, because I don't own a pet. But we heard the voices of the community very loud and very clear, and that never made it out of the study session onto the alderman calendar, because we heard very loud, very clear, very quickly from the community that they were against the pet ordinance. So I agree with you, Alderman Milton. The community input is extremely vital and important, especially when the ordinance impacts so many people in the community. So we addressed it when I was mayor. It did not make it to the floor, and it did not get voted on, and as rightfully shouldn't have been.
You ready?
Mayor Akers.
The City of Branson has a pet ordinance in existence now. It's extremely outdated. The reason for bringing a change to the pet ordinance up was done through several study sessions, through meetings with the different departments, and was brought forth. What I'm surprised that people don't understand, particularly people that sit on city government, is there's a first vote, and there's a reason for that. So that you have 2 weeks then to do your homework and do study before it's brought back up again. The reason I voted for what I did was I recognized there was 2 weeks for us to be able to decide. And what the alderman will decide to do, I don't know, but I'm recommending a postponement so that the aldermen can go back to their wards, meet with the people in their wards, and bring back to us information on this pet ordinance. It's a very emotional issue. It's both an issue from a danger standpoint, We all are struck with tragedy that occurs because a vicious animal does something to a small child and a mom. We have to have some kind of responsibility as a government to have rules and regulations for pets. So the process works, and that's why I did what I did, and I believe that's why the alderman decided to change his vote, recognizing that there's 2 weeks, and then we can come to a session, and if we want to postpone it, we can. That's, in my mind, a way to meet a common ground. Thank you.
The next question. How will your administration support Branson's live shows and theaters? Amber, 2 minutes.
Well, again, I know I'm kind of a newer face to a lot of people, especially the senior citizen community, but my parents are senior citizens here. And again, I'm the outstanding candidate. And I know sometimes you feel uncomfortable voting for somebody new that hasn't been to all the meetings. But again, I'm a fast learner, and my goal is to delegate, get mayoral alliance type committees, and then as an entertainer and as a songwriter, I'd like to create some better respect for some of the local musicians and singers here. I've heard many people say, oh, but they sing in Branson. We can't have them on a nationwide TV show. They sing in Branson. No, that, again, it starts with the mouth. And that's why I speak a lot with emotion. And again, my entertainment value would bring also in the local cheer squads, the local dance teams, and let these kids enjoy their life. Like the pastor said, live the abundant life. You know, live a little outside the realm. And I can pass the mic down to people who are experts in the planning and budgeting, people who are experts in, finance committee. They can do their job. I'm, humble enough to respect people for their expertise and for their forte. And again, in entertainment, I think we could make this a safer place for higher-end celebrities to live. And I've said that before. It begins with getting a better judge. Here, for one thing, because they don't want to lose their children either, or grandchildren, to some fiasco of psychotic industry abuse. Just because a female entertainer who's single does not deserve disrespect. And again, but I would try to bring in a higher level media attention, hopefully.
Thank you. Larry Milton.
The theater industry, I've always believed, is the core industry of Branson. I believe it's what sets Branson apart from every other community in the country. Many places have beautiful lakes, natural beauty, shopping. There is no community in the United States that was named the live entertainment capital of the world. That's what got us here. That's what our chamber has said from day one. That is the main reason people come to Branson, Missouri. My wife and I owned a company, Branson Tourism Center and Branson.com. Through our ownership, we had sold over 4.5 million show tickets. We sat with every single entertainer, the show itself, the theater owners, paid them a good price. There was no beating up on price, marketed. We were respected in the show industry. So at the time when I was supporting shows, I had a dog in that fight, admittedly. It's been, I'm not sure, 8 years or 9 years since we sold Branson Tourism Center. Currently, we own Main Street Marina. Main Street Marina consists of several businesses, but it's outdoors. We have water sport rentals. If I was being selfish, I would encourage the chamber to divert monies from the theater and let's promote more outdoors because it'll help my business. What I know personally is if we continue to support the core that brings people to Branson, my business and every other business will prosper from that.
Thank you very much. Karen.
I remember as a kid coming to Branson and sitting in the audience of the Baldnubbers and the Presleys. And as a child, those were the stars, those were the celebrities, those were the people that I was like, oh my gosh, I can see them, I can shake hands with them, I'm important to them, and I think that's what makes Branson who we are. Is you can go to a show in Vegas, you can go to a show in New York City, but I guarantee you they do not come out after the show, shake your hand, get to know you, know your family. You have people coming back year after year to see those shows. That's what's important to this community. That's what we're built on. That's where we come from. And that's what sets our shows apart from every other show in the country. And that's what we highlight that makes it different. I had an entertainer that came here from Nashville. And I remember when he came, he said, I want to be snuck in the back door. I don't want anybody to see me. I don't want to have to shake hands. I don't want to talk to anybody. And I said, then you don't belong in Branson, because that's the Branson way. That's who we are. We are a town of hospitality. We treat our customers, we treat our visitors as if they're family. Always been that way, always will be. I support the shows wholeheartedly. I have gone to shows 35, 40 a year. If I didn't like the shows, trust me, I wouldn't go to see that many of them. But we have an incredibly talented group of people, and I would put them up against a Broadway show any day. And so as mayor, part of your job is to promote all the businesses in town. Your job is to bring the spotlight on those shows. I remember bringing the governor when he was lieutenant governor to see the shows. I wanted him to see what's important in our community. I want him to feel what it feels like to be part of that show community. Because when it comes time to delve out the tourism dollars, we're the third largest economic driver in the state. And so we want to make sure that we get those funds so that we can keep people coming back to our shows, keep people coming back to everything we have to offer here in Branson. So that's why the shows are important to me.
Thank you.
I don't
Mayor
think
Akers.
anyone has ever denied that the shows are the unique aspect of this community that makes us unique from other areas of the country. All the chamber data shows that folks come here, over 60% of the folks that come here because we have theaters. An idiot would have to say I'm against shows. The shows are what makes this community unique and different and important. Obviously, shows are private businesses. They're run by people just like all of us. And those people have to do the best job they can do to run their businesses. I believe the focus has come in on and is coming to a head now in regard to a study that was done to try to help the show industry in this community, to understand what the issues are, to understand how they might be able to be helped the most. There's no doubt in my mind that part of the problem has been discount tickets, that people can buy discount tickets and shows are willing to sell those at a discount. During this pandemic, some of the shows found out that by selling only tickets at their window so they could control the size of the crowd, unfortunately that's what they had to do, and also sell at full price, they actually were doing better during some of those times than they had in the past. If you think about it, if you get full price at the front thing and only seat half the people, but you had discounted tickets who were less than half price. So it's important that we look at our industry, look at the city, and how we might help, look to the Chamber of Commerce and how we might promote. The shows have to go on, and they did. Other parts of the country shut down, but even though we had restrictions, our shows stayed open. And the ones that really were innovative did as well as they could do with 2.5 months being shut down. So the shows have to be a part of our plan for the future.
Thank you. At this point, we are going to transition to candidate-specific questions from the public. Amber Thompson, there has been some perception that your campaign for mayor is more about personal issues that you have had with the city rather than actually wanting to serve as the leader of the city of Branson. Are you prepared to serve as mayor, and will your term as mayor be focused on the people, setting personal issues aside?
No, number one, why would I want to have people set their personal issues aside? I mean, really. Let's put yourself in my shoes, Josh. Let's say they'd taken your kids away. And this whole entire audience, the whole entire city, all the aldermen, all the mayors didn't want anything to do with you. They didn't want to hear your story. They didn't want to help you get an attorney. And you talked to Brian Seitz, you talked to Roy Blunt, you talked to Billy Long. No one wanted to help you get your children back. So you went to Color 10, you went to KSPR 33, KY3. No one to help you. What would you do?
I don't know.
Would you get on board and try to maybe run for mayor? Just for chance, okay? I'm just trying to say, this is what I want to point out. And I have been a leader, okay? I may not be the president tomorrow, you know what I'm saying? But I have been a president of many organizations. I started my own, the Civil Defense Coalition. I also was on the National Honor Society in high school. I was in student council. I've had many leadership positions, even in college. I was voted Miss Congeniality at College of the Ozarks. You know, I was the most personable. I was asked to go to be in public relations. They kept telling me to go for public relations, but I chose elementary education and nutrition as my degree. Again, you can vote for mediocrity. You can vote for, there's 3 different types of candidates, A, B, and C. I call this my ABC as an educator, elementary educator campaign, anti-bullying campaign. They're apathetic and aloof, arrogant candidates that always run for office. B, belligerent and bullying, which you've seen with mandating masks on even children and people who've served on the school board that never defended them. And C, compassionate, Christian, truly Christian, convicted, and constitutional, like myself. And that's why you should vote for me.
Thank you. Larry Milton, over the past year, it seems that the board has had a lot of 4-1 and 5-1 votes, with you being in the minority. As mayor, would you be able to work together with the aldermen to move Branson forward? 2 minutes.
Well, based on results, I have yet to be successful working with the existing board. The good news is, with this election, with us bringing in 3 new aldermen who I have met with personally, we are like-minded. With having the support of the board, we're going to be able to make some dramatic changes that are needed. I am hopeful. I will work very hard on the current 3 aldermen that are not up for election and share knowledge, input, dialogue, seeing if we could reach some common ground. The existing board is not what's important today. What's important is on April 6th, we bring in 3 new board members so we can get our agenda accomplished.
And again, I do want to remind everyone, these are submitted individual questions, so thank you all for doing this. Karen Best, you lost the mayoral race to Mayor Akers in 2019, followed by losing the primary to Representative Seitz in 2020. What is different about this election bid?
I actually expected this question. When I lost to Mayor Akers, if 29 people had changed their vote, the election would have gone differently. So for me, that was not a mandate that we don't like what you're doing. It was just a very tight race. The race with Brian Seitz was a little different. Lost by 4% of the vote on that one. Unfortunately, during that campaign, I had to have knee replacement surgery, so I was not able to get out. I was not able to campaign. I was not able to run my campaign the way I normally would. So kudos to Mr. Seitz, Representative Seitz. He did a great job and won that race. So why is this time different? This time is different because I'm healthy. I have my new knee. I'm able to get out. I'm able to talk. I'm able to meet with people. And I'm able to work on what I did when I was mayor for 2 terms before. As I said, I didn't lose by very much to Mayor Akers. That was a very, very close race. And I think in talking to people since that race, a lot of people have said, we made a mistake in how we voted and we want you back in there. People have identified with making our community a 12-month economy, moving toward that. They've identified with the infrastructure and backing the police and fire, and they've seen that. And so They will decide on April 6th what direction they want to go. There's 3 very different candidates who have served before and 1 candidate who has not served before. So there is a choice. And so I encourage people to look at each candidate, decide what's best for you, and vote for what's the best.
Thank you. Mayor Akers, you have recently noted issues with the water treatment plant, but many don't seem to understand what those issues might be. In 2 minutes, could you break down that issue so that the public, general public, understands your concern?
Sure, it's not very sexy to talk about sewage treatment, but it's a real issue. In 2016, a study was done that it would take about $11 million to try to solve the issue that if a flood came, in 2017 it came within 2 feet, if a flood came and washed out the sewer treatment plant, the economic or the ecological effect downstream, but more than 65% of this central part of Branson could not take a shower, could not flush the stool, could not get the normal services the city provides, and what would they do? They couldn't operate their motels, they couldn't operate their restaurants. And so my focus has been on going in and seeking funding through the state programs. We have 2/3 of the funding promised. We have the last about $6 million from HUD that's in the works to try to make sure we can solve the issue of the flooding issue for the Compton Street plant down by Lakewood Estates. It's a serious problem. It doesn't mean we just shut down for 2.5 months because there's a government shutdown. We don't shut down for a period of time because there's masking. We shut down. And so it is a huge issue. And it hasn't been looked to. There was a study done in 2016. I found it when I came in 2019, and it's been my focus. COVID slowed us down last year. Obviously, funding from the government was a difficult problem, but we're close. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Milton, recently there have been accusations that you are looking to bring entertainment to Branson that is not family friendly. These stem from 2 past events hosted at the Paddle Wheel. Can you address this, and are you looking to make Branson less family friendly?
Oh, boy. I sure hope the public and the voters saw through that political, mud-throwing, sole purpose of that whole thing coming out was an attempt to assassinate my character. I wasn't even going to give the dignity to respond to something so ludicrous. But you asked the question, here's the short answer. 2019 HBO is coming to Branson. They come to Branson, they set up shop at the Branson Airport, did the majority of their rehearsals, shots, filming at the Branson Airport. They are looking for a facility in Branson to film one of the segments of their shows. I have an empty building. They asked if they could film there. They filmed there. It was a business decision. I did not invite them to Branson. I didn't encourage them to come. I didn't do all the things that I'm claimed that I did. 4 years ago, what I'm hearing through the rumor mill is Larry Milton brings strippers to Branson. Larry Milton wants to continue to bring strippers to Branson. And so that's what Larry Milton's all about. Think about that. 4 years ago, my wife had a couple friends ask about bringing a male review show to Branson. We both have hesitancy. First thing we do, being responsible, we thought, was going to City Hall. At City Hall, we had a meeting, about 6 directors in the meeting. Carl in charge of alcohol, finance, some others. Alderman C at the time was in the meeting, and Karen Best, our mayor. So to be fully transparent. We bring up the promotional information. Here's what we're thinking. What do you think? Unanimous approval for us to do this. And not only, I mean, the city, I didn't know this, city has an ordinance that says, here's what you can and can't do. And some's graphic, I'm gonna tell you. So, Karen Best and I have a disagreement on some of that conversation. Karen Best says her response to us at the time was, hey, it's legal, I don't support it, I don't encourage it, but I can't stop you from doing it. Fair? What myself and others in the room recall hearing is Karen Best says, wow, that's great, save me a front row seat. It doesn't matter. It happened 4 years ago. We did it one time. In hindsight, we should not have done it. We will never do it again. But to hear this baloney that you vote for Larry Milton, he's going to bring strippers to Branson, I would think that the voters have enough common sense to see through that political BS.
Thank you. Karen Best. Many of the perceived spending issues did not, with the city of Branson, of course, did not originate in the Acres administration, with some coming before your time as mayor, but also during your 2 terms. In a third Karen Best term, do you feel you will be able to rein in spending at City Hall?
Okay, that's a good question, and it's a very valid question, and it's one that I addressed a little while ago. I really want to respond to the last one, but I'll stay on topic. When you come in as mayor, as I said before, you do have some, issues, and the mayor does not vote on spending issues. The mayor can guide, the mayor can direct, the mayor can ask, the mayor can request. But when it comes down to the actual money being spent, that is approved in the finance committee. The mayor sits on that committee and can vote in that committee. But the aldermen also sit in those committees. And if you go back and you look at the records and all of that, you'll see that even though we have a spending problem, there's not been votes, or there have been votes to curb that spending. But when it comes down to, it goes from that committee as a recommendation to the board. The board is the final vote on approving or disapproving funding that's spent. The mayor does not get to vote on that unless it's a tie. And I only got to break a tie twice, when it was, once was issue related, and the other was when I broke the tie to sever the agreement with the city administrator who had caused such a spending debacle at the time. So I did vote to end that and get rid of it, but that was the only time I was allowed to vote on anything that had anything to do with spending. So yes, I will try to rein that in, but to say I can or cannot, I can't do that because I don't get to vote. And so it has to be the alderman, it has to be who you elect to represent you in the alderman position that can approve or disapprove spending. I can guide and direct, but I cannot stop, and I cannot make anyone spend anything either.
Thank you. Mayor Akers. As recently as February 18th, Branson City Council held the position that even August would be an ambitious target date for a mandate repeal of the mask. Council is now voting on the repeal Tuesday, only 2 weeks prior to the election. How can you explain this change of position other than political expediency?
Well, people will want to read in what they want to read in, but the truth is a lot of the statistics have changed. We've had good figures in the county. We've been following that. We meet weekly and discuss what COVID is doing, the number of cases, what's happening in the community. And what we really promised is that we would look at when there was significant change and an alderman chose to want to bring it forward, or the mayor can bring it forward. I chose to bring it forward because right now is a time for us to really look at what's going on and try to make a decision. Again, like former Mayor Best has shared, the alderman will make the decision. I think it's important that we do what we say we'll do, and I think it's important that we look at what's changed. And change occurred very rapidly during this last year. You had a lot of change going on very rapidly. I think it's appropriate and the mayor's responsibility to try to bring things to the attention of the alderman. And so I chose, it's my decision, to bring this up at this time, not for political purposes, but to see where we are. Now I'm sorry, did I say something funny? Okay. I'm saying it because the alderman can make a lot of choices. They can say it's not time yet. They can say we can put it off for a period of time. We can relook at and get more data. There's lots of options that we have. But the truth is, and if you'll look at the statistics, it has changed drastically, and a lot of changes occurred. It's time to look at it, and that's the reason.
Okay. Thank you very much. Larry Milton, what can people expect from a Milton administration that would be any different from the two previous administrations?
We don't have enough time. What our community is going to see and feel is community involvement. Now, those are great words to say, blah, blah, blah. But I'm talking about having some town hall meetings, right? You don't come to the city and you stand at the podium and you got all these people up here on the dais and they're looking down on you and you're going to share with the city. We have informal town hall meetings on specific topics. We're going to hear, we'll have small businesses in. We'll have the lodging association in. A very entertaining one will be to have the contractors come in, right? You're going to have the mayor, some aldermen, the directors of different departments. That's the way, and I said earlier, the aldermen aren't any smarter, right? The wealth of our community is the people that live in our community. Why we're not taking advantage of the knowledge that the residents have that are more than willing to share with this city is mind-boggling to me. Treating all of our residents and businesses with respect, I think that'll be a refreshing change to many of those that have talked to me and that I've personally witnessed. Unifying the city, unifying our businesses, helping our theater industry stay the core industry and get the funding and the exposure that it deserves. I would go out on a limb to say, after 2 years of being the mayor, you may not recognize the city that you're used to seeing.
Karen Best, you have noted that economic development is one of your campaign focuses. After everything that we've been through in 2020, do you think that it's going to be hard to get funding for new economic development and infrastructure projects, and what are your thoughts about that?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know who gave that one, but good for you. One of my number one goals has always been economic development. I'm a real estate salesperson by trade. I'm used to bringing businesses and people to our community and having them feel at home here. That's been my job for 15 years. And so competing for those economic development funds is crucial. We have to come up with ways that we can attract people. People have been cooped up for the last year. As you can see by the last weekend, it's been just hopping here. The Forbes article helped in making us a safe community. People are wanting to come here. I always said if I could get someone here once, I could get them back and I could get them to move here. I had a group of entertainers come into town and I asked them before they came, what did you think about coming to Branson? And they said, don't make me go, don't make me go, don't make me go. We got them here. They fell in love with it. When I took them to the airport, I said, now that you've been here for 2 weeks, how do you feel about Branson? The same comment, don't make me go, don't make me go. I want to stay here. I want to bring my family here. I want to live here. I want to bring a business here. So it's getting people here, getting them to see what a great community we are, how we're all family, how we have that Ozarks hospitality. And so economic development is easy when you've got a town like Branson. Funding is more difficult. That's why you have to have someone who has those connections that can make them happen, that can pick up the phone to Rob Dixon, the economic developer, or can text him and say, hey, I need help here. Having those relationships with Jason Ray from SIMCOG, saying I need funding for an infrastructure project, I need this. That's important, and that's always been my goal, and it will continue to be my goal. But the one thing we cannot do in that economic development piece is forget our existing businesses, because we have to support them too and have that workforce development for them to be able to draw from as well.
Thank you. Mayor Akers. Health concerns have been the primary driver for the mask mandate. Would an alderman vote for repeal of the mandate in April be playing politics with the lives of Branson's residents and guests?
Obviously, I wasn't born yesterday, and I knew that when this topic came up because of the changes, that some would feel that way. And I'm sorry you feel that way. But the intent is that we need to keep track of what's going on and ask aldermen to look at what the facts are, what the information is, and whether it's time to make a change. And as I said earlier, that change could be all sorts of things. It could be putting it off to a future date. It could be treating it as a change in the ordinance and making recommendations for an amendment. It's an important issue for this community. The masking, as I said from the get-go, has not been to make people angry and upset. It's been to try to stop the spread of an airborne virus that is truly existent and is here. And what I want to do is also see a time when there's a lot of inoculations been done, that the vaccination have been stepped up. We've been told by the governor they're going to try to get it done by May. So I'm hopeful that there's something in the future, that the light at the end of the tunnel is there, and that people that serve and are true public servants will look at all the sides of the issues and not say, well, we have to get rid of it now. Let's get rid of it based on information and facts and the fact that we can deal with it safely.
Thank you. We're now going to move into our closing statements. You'll each have 2 minutes, and then we will adjourn for lunch. Amber Thompson, your 2-minute closing statements.
I want to thank you for letting me speak. Again, as I said, this is a rare event. I wish and ask and plead with you, each on an individual basis, to have a conscience. Have a conscience. Do any of these other people really need the pride of putting a feather in their cap to say they were a mayor? Have a conscience. Did any of these people speak up against the masks that can cause anoxia? I want to remind you that out of all these candidates, each has their forte, each has their oratorial skill, but when it comes down to, again, your heart, your public convictions, your work with God, you have a heart. You either go on bullying people like me, or you vote for the candidate, again, who has a COVID response plan to mandate employment on people that are being forced to the curb. If you watch the Grammy Awards, what do they promote to the highest level of society on a stage? A stripper. For those of you who didn't watch the Grammys in the music industry, a stripper was rubbing her butt against another woman's genitals on live television. And he's got HBO connectivity. And I'm a hugely, well, no, I'm not convicting him of doing anything wrong, but I'm just saying we have the connections here in this town within the snap of their fingers where people like myself, our stories are getting snuffled out. And I was told by some older people here in town to go get a job as a stripper. Are you going to keep pushing women like myself? And see, children pick up on this. Children pick up on this bullying mentality. You can choose to have a society that's going to become violent. Violence will increase in Branson. I guarantee it in the future. And I guarantee you'll have a strip club here. I guarantee you'll have a gambling casino. I guarantee you'll have all kinds of infusion of more KKK mentality being pushed. But again, I have the best response for the COVID recovery because I'm the only one who's educated in the medical field. I'm the only one who's gone into the nursing homes and
Thank you very
seen
much,
the
Amber.
mental pain people are in, which I'm trying to put an end to
Thank you
and make
very
nursing
much.
homes into.
Thank you. Larry Milton.
Boy, I wished I had more than 2 minutes. I'm going to start off with, I'll try to make this quick. I'm going to start off with calling it like it is. I am calling out Mayor Akers for putting the mask mandate on the ballot this coming Tuesday. When we put things on the ballot, it is rare for us to have a double read. We have double reads when things are important. For example, on this day, on the first read, a contract will expire before we have the next meeting. So that's important, that's emergency. We have to make the decisions, vote twice on that one night. There's reasons there's emergency voting, doesn't happen often. What I just heard, and I think you heard, was 30 days ago, I asked the Board of Aldermen in a public meeting to put the mask mandates back on the ballot. The response, not even close. Nowhere near close. One alderman says, well, maybe a study session in May. Now, not only is it on the ballot, and I'm being told, well, we're going to put it, well, what I heard tonight was we're going to put it on the ballot so we can get some discussion, see what people think. But it's on there as a double read. The only emergency between the first reading this Tuesday and traditionally the second reading, which is April 13th, is an election. Okay? It's time that you get to hear the truth. I am endorsed by the Branson Fire Department, and there's a reason why. They know I will be the best mayor for this community. I am endorsed by Representative Brian Seitz because he knows that we have issues in this community, and he's going to help us at the state level to get things changed. I've been endorsed by Marshall Howden, very smart, very respectable leader in our community. He knows that he's endorsing me because we both pretty much stand for the same thing. He didn't want to see the vote divided. He is putting his full support behind me. I'm endorsed by Ed Akers. Boy, if somebody took a clip of that and put it on the internet. I'm endorsed by Mayor Tate, 22-year mayor in Hollister, has never endorsed another candidate in his 22 years. The reason he's endorsing me is I want Branson to reach out with an olive branch to our surrounding communities, to Taney County, and work with them as partners and not be maybe as arrogant as we are. I'm ready to go to work for you. I am asking for your vote. I'm not only asking for your vote for me, I am asking for your vote for Clay Cooper. I'm asking for your vote for Ruth Denham. If Ruth Denham, Clay Cooper, and myself get elected on April 6th, you will be the beneficiaries of that. If any one of us don't, Karen's correct, the mayor doesn't vote often. If I don't have the majority of the board, which I do with Cody Fenton, Clay, and Ruth, you'll see the changes. I appreciate your vote on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you once again for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for everyone who showed up to support all of the candidates on the stage. This is not an easy thing to do. You don't do this because you want accolades. You don't do this because you want ever. You do this because you have a public servant heart. And I would say that anyone sitting up here wants what's best for Branson. We all love this community. We all want to see it thrive, and we all want to see it prosper. That's one thing that all four of us can agree on. But what we differ in is how we get there. I've always ran on three things, and those three things have never changed, and they will continue if I get the honor to serve again. And that is improving public safety, improving infrastructure, and improving economic development. I back our fire, I back our police. I fought hard for them at every level of government to get them what they needed. I fought hard for the infrastructure to get us funds so that we could have everything we need and to also bring in affordable housing. I fought hard for economic development. I fought hard to make us a 12-month economy. We cannot keep continuing and be a prosperous community if we are still a 9-month economy. We have got to move to 12 months. When we have places like the aquarium at the boardwalk and WonderWorks coming in, Fritz's, and making a 12-month economy, shows will follow, restaurants will follow, lodging establishments will follow, tourists will come back, and they'll be here in January and February. That's how we get the wages increased. That's how we make this a livable wage community. So you have a choice when it comes to April 6th, and I would be honored to be able to serve again another term as your mayor. Vote Karen Best on April 6th.
Thank you, Karen. Mayor Akers.
Thank you for this time. I'm a person who seeks to take the high road. I live on integrity and truth. I will not tell you something that I believe will help get me a vote. I will not try to tear someone else down to build myself up. But what I will promise you is that you're going to get a fair, just effort out of me. You're going to see that I love this community. This is my community. Don't mess with it. And I feel like we got folks messing with it. And I want you to know that it's a huge responsibility to serve. Aldermen and mayors need to have training and education. Some of my aldermen have chosen to do that. Some have not, because they think they know everything they need to know without getting any training. And I can tell you, you need to know something about how government functions and operates. My intent is to try to continue to keep that middle road, to keep our community open, keep our businesses open, seek to have people be able to come here and spend their money, enjoy themselves, and our economy to grow. I've proven that. I've been in the hot seat. I've been doing it. I just ask you to be fair with me and look at what we've done since a year ago when we were shut down. Remember that? Terrible time, emotional issues, all kinds of things occurred. But right now, have you noticed on the weekends, there's a few people here in town? Our economy is going well. People are coming to see us, some more than others. I think it's time for me to be able to get a year that I lost back in the next 2 years. COVID took over and took away from me a year of trying to get looking to the future. I would like to have these next 2 years to begin to build to the future of what Branson might be like down the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For all of you who have been here this morning, thank you so, so much. I know we have some additional instructions on what is going on. Of course, I do encourage everyone, as you've heard already, aldermen, and this is, of course, part of the educational process, aldermen drive policy. The afternoon session is crucial to the civic and community process. And, of course, my many, many thanks to Amber Thompson, Larry Milton, Karen Best, and Mayor Ed Akers for their time this morning. Thank you.
Keep that applause going, folks, for Mr. Joshua Heston. And we want to say an additional thank you to some folks that helped to make this event possible. Copy Run, Dieger Construction, State of the Ozarks, the Healing Arts Center, Victory Chiropractic, Embers Cigar Lounge, Vintage Paris, Branson Party Rentals, Branson Center Stage, Pizza World, and Starvin' Marvin's. Thank you to all of you guys for helping to make this happen today. If you're here representing a business and you'd like to be a part of a future event, feel free to come and talk to me during the break. I would love to connect with you. And speaking of future events, we also want to give just a minute to talk about an upcoming event called Liberty Lectures. It's happening on April 3rd, and Miss Cindy Hughes has some information for you all about that.
Thanks, Pearl. Thank you all for coming out. I think I speak for Pearl when I say that we're actually very excited to be hosting events at our theater that will hopefully draw more members of our community to become more involved in the political process and economic growth and development of Branson. My personal feeling on having events held in the theater is I think that some of our online discussions have become a little toxic. And we really want to thank you for coming out and being a face, being a person, instead of just an online profile. One of the things that I started in February was a monthly seminar happening the first Saturday of each month that educates people on principles of liberty. And what we do here, I feel like, is so great because it's the practical application of those principles, but you have to know them first. And unfortunately, there are a lot of places that do not offer correct and well-reasoned principles that will lead to liberty, both on a national level and especially on state and local levels. And so we encourage you to come out each first Saturday of the month. We'll have an event. We've had two so far. Our first lecturer was a gentleman by the name of Dan Ford, who has amassed a private collection of historical documents going back clear to the 15th century that detailed all of the Christian historical principles that led to the founding of this great nation, and actually how some of those things have been left actually in a wake of public policy that has forgotten those principles. And the second lecture that we had last month was from Mr. Earl Taylor, who was the president of the National Center for Constitutional Studies. That's what it is, NCCS. He gave a great presentation on principles of liberty that guided the nation's founding. And next month, April 3rd, it's the Saturday before the election, we're pleased to present a gentleman by the name of Darren Chappell, who is a city administrator up in Chillicothe, Missouri. He's well known over the state, all around the state for heralding conservative fiscal principles in administering city government. And feel like that's a real appropriate lecture to have before we enter into the April elections. We encourage everybody to come. From community members, surrounding community members. We'd like to invite all of the elected officials, candidates, so that we can all be on the same page about what principles should be guiding our local community that will lead to the best results. We have Dr. Mary Byrne coming in May, who is an educator. She's speaking to us about principles in education, critical race theory coming up. In June, we're bringing back Dan Ford. He was so well received, and I felt so bad because we had a very small attendance, but he's coming back, and it is a presentation that you don't want to miss. It's just so educational and informative, and other people coming along the way, too. So please check out our website. It's www.libertylectures.com. We've also got a Facebook page at Liberty Lectures, and working in conjunction with Branson U to keep our community educated so that when we have events like this, we're all educated and can apply those principles in practice.
Thank you, Cindy. We do have some flyers up here on the stage if you'd like more information about that. If you'd like more information about Branson U, please go to bransonu.org. Click the button that says Join, and we will notify you as we have upcoming events. And speaking of upcoming, I do want to strongly encourage you guys to return for the afternoon session. We ran a little bit long this morning, so we will resume at 1:30. Now, we started with a question for you all, and I'm going to end with a question for you all. How many of y'all like food? How many of you guys like food? All right. Now, I know we live in a busy town right now. It's spring break, lots of traffic out there, so we wanted to make sure you guys had some quick options for lunch. And we got together with Pizza World and Starvin' Marvin's right down the road here. You can actually walk to both of them from here, just across the sidewalk, the other side of the track there. And if you show them this flyer, we'll have folks handing those out so that you can have one with you. They will give you a 10% discount on your order for lunch. Pizza World is great and fast. Starvin' Marvin's actually has a lunch buffet, so how's that for quick service? And we want you all to come back here. We will start promptly at 1:30. Call your neighbors, call your coworkers. Let's see if we can't double this crowd so that we can continue to learn about the folks who are going to be making decisions for us after April 6th. All right? Community starts with you. We will see you back here at 1:30. Thank you.